you don't get me. That is the problem of a highly sensitive person. I've been giving a lot of thought about what a highly sensitive person is and how most people perceive us. And the problem is you don't get us. And so you back away from us and you leave us isolated, which makes matters worse for us. So I want to help you to understand a highly sensitive person and what that means to us in the world and how you can better understand someone like me. Let's get started and let me tell you why you don't get me.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
You're either going to love me or you're going to hate me. And most people love me right off the bat. I mean, they are immediately drawn to me because I do exude this loving, kind, friendly, outgoing nature. They immediately say, she's wonderful. She's so nice and kind and loving and thoughtful. And I am. That never changes. But the problem is that I can't always be that. As a highly sensitive person, the world around me affects me differently than it does you. But the problem is that I make friends incredibly easily, but I lose them just as fast. I can make someone my best friend within a matter of minutes. They feel connected to me. They feel like they can trust me. They confide in me. And I never, ever break that trust with them. Because trust is a huge issue for me. Telling the truth is a huge issue for me. And keeping things personal between one another is an issue for me. Now, a lot of people always say, well, you wear your heart on your sleeve and you tell too much about your life and it makes people uncomfortable. That's who I am. Because I like to share who I am. Because as a highly sensitive person, I am very aware of the world around me, and I like to share that with people. I love to talk, and I love to share things, but I would never betray your trust. See, that's the difference, is that when you come into my life, you need to know one thing and one thing only. You can trust me for life, and I will love you for life. But that will never change. Even when you hurt me or you betray me, I have a tendency to get angry, but I will confront that situation, that issue, that problem that you and I may have. I'll confront it because I want to move on. Because if I don't confront the issue with you, it will fester inside of me and make things worse for me as a highly sensitive person. I will start to begin feeling all of these raw emotions that are irrational. So for me, I have to tell you what I'm feeling, what you did wrong to me, how it made me feel, in hopes that we can move on and I won't end up feeling like you hate me. However, that leads me to the next point, is that I do feel that people hate me. And people do hate me a lot. I find that people find it very easily to love me and then hate me almost immediately because of the very things that I just talked about. My best friend, she handles things very diplomatically. She thinks things through, she gives it time, and she really beautifully can express a bad emotion that she feels in the most extraordinary way that would make someone feel like they weren't offended. I, on the other hand, have a tendency to express myself in a way that offends people very deeply. It's never my intention to do that, though. I will write something that's really anger-filled, like that's just really pumped with high emotions and swear words and just crazy thoughts. And then I have to go back and I have to censor it and I have to delete it and I have to rethink the way that I am reacting to the situation. And in my mind, I feel like the final product is a product of love that gives you an understanding of how I feel. And I always try to explain how I feel, and I always tell people that this is how I feel, and that doesn't make it real or that that's reality. It's just how I feel. It's just what you did and how this made me feel. And then I always try to say, please know that I love you and that I'm just thoughtful about you. I care about you. I want to work this out. I want to move forward. And at that point, that's when people just shut down from me. That's when people walk away. That's when people say, I can't deal with that. Well, where do I fit in your life? Because that's another thing that a highly sensitive person needs to know. Where do they fit in your life? Are we at the bottom of the totem pole, or are we somewhere in between? Or do you really hold us with the high esteem? Do you value us? Do you value what I have to offer to you as a friend? So that plays a great deal into this feeling of rejection and isolation. So where I fit in your life is incredibly important to me. I need to know if I hold any worth or value in your life. And the reason for that is because all of my life, I have never felt valued or worthwhile or worthy of love. So I fight for those things. I fight for them a great deal. One of the other things that is incredibly important to me is the need to be heard. I don't know why. I guess it's because I feel like sometimes I have a lot to offer to the world, and I feel like I have very good ideas. As a homeschooling mom, I'm always presenting new and fun ideas for homeschool curriculum and trying to think of ways for us to socialize and to get together and have fun classes. And in the process, those ideas seem to get ignored or overlooked, and I take it personally. My Getting Homeschooled Facebook page, I just felt like no one was listening to anything I was sharing. I was asking questions. I was trying to engage people, to communicate with one another, to answer each other's questions, to talk to one another. I was even asking for recommendations on certain things, and no one would respond. However, on a Facebook page or in a group page, you can always see how many people have actually seen the post. So I would see that 36 people would see the post and not one single person would respond or participate. And I got really mad eventually. I really just got very frustrated and I just shut the whole thing down. I have a tendency to do that. I have a tendency to just shut completely down when I feel that I have been personally attacked or I feel rejection. A good example is when my father hurts me, and he does that a lot. I have a tendency to not just isolate him and start cutting him off, but I will cut everyone off who is actually associated with my father. I will cut off my aunts, my uncles, my half-sisters, anybody who has real contact with my father. I will completely just delete. I won't have any contact with them, and then people come back and say, you deleted me, and then they're mad at me, and it's like, I'm not mad at you. I just need to get away from that association, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Oh, another good example is my brother-in-law, Mikey. He really hurt me this last year, about a year ago. He made an accusation about me that was untrue, and truth is a huge thing for someone like me, and I don't like being lied to. Being lied to will set me off like nothing you've ever seen before, and my anger intensifies. My anger is something you just don't want to deal with when I feel injustice. And Mikey had lied about something very important and made the family believe a lie about me. And then everyone started coming at Jared and attacking me through my husband. This was incredibly difficult, and it caused a lot of problems, not just with Jared's family, but within my own family. I wanted people to defend me. I need that. I don't want people to defend me. I actually need people to stand up for me because I feel it's an injustice. When somebody does an injustice to me, I really absolutely need someone to stand up for me. Because when I stand up for myself, it comes off as being defensive or hurtful or mean or cruel, and nobody cares to listen to me. And so then I feel alone in that. I feel like when nobody defends my defensiveness, then it feels like I'm nuts. It feels like I'm wrong. And then I start feeling shame and guilt and regret. And it's terrible. It is a vicious cycle that you get in. So when somebody does an injustice to me, like Mikey did, I expected my family to defend me, particularly my son Josh, who was going to have Mikey as his best man in his wedding. Now, Mikey at this point was quite literally destroying my marriage with Jared. The family was getting involved. They were really saying a lot of hateful things about me. They were telling Jared that they felt sorry for him, that he had to be married to me. Inadvertent text messages were sent to him that were meant for Mikey from my father-in-law saying, I wish he would just leave her. And this was killing me emotionally. And quite frankly, this is really when things started spiraling out of control this past year, because it started this whole fiasco that just turned into a nightmare. I wanted to talk to my son about Mikey being in the wedding and whether or not it would be a good idea if I came there, because Mikey was causing so much problems, and everybody was, talking about how great Mikey was and what a fantastic, wonderful, incredible, amazing, thoughtful, loving person he is. And yet here I am, the one who knows that that's not true. Yes, he was those things, but he was also mean and hateful and vindictive and rebellious. Like, he loved to just shock you. He would do things on purpose just to upset you. It was his thing. He loved to set people off. He loved to bait people into arguments and into getting you all riled up. While this is going on and everyone's believing him, I'm talking to my son about this and asking him, I can't be around somebody who is destroying my marriage. And my son just sat there and completely ignored me. I mean, he literally wouldn't even say a word. And I said, do you have anything to say? And he said, I really don't know what to say. My response was, what you should say is, you're my mother, and I'm not going to let anybody talk to you like that, and I'm not going to let somebody hurt you like that. That is what I want the world to do, but I never, ever get that response. It never happens. So I actually feel very alone in the world, in the injustices, and I feel like I'm fighting the world all by myself, and it's a very painful place. Some of you know that at one point, throughout a lot of things going on with our ex-landlord and the lawsuit that we're going through, that I had to call the suicide hotline. I did not try to commit suicide, but I was thinking of it. So I was smart enough to actually contact suicide hotline. And one of the things that I said is that I just feel alone in this. I feel like I'm the one that's fighting them, and my husband is just kind of sitting back and not really, standing up for me and standing up for what's right and what's rightfully ours. And the woman on the other line was so great, very empathetic, and she said, that's got to be so hard to fight that all on your own. You must feel so alone. And I did. And for the first time, it felt like, wow, somebody gets it. I do feel alone in this world. That's the other thing I feel. I feel very alone in this world when I try to stand up for things that are right, or where I try to defend an injustice done against me. I feel like nobody will stand up and say, this is wrong. And I have a situation right now where someone is hurting me very deeply, And a friend of mine is still in communication with this person and still being chummy and friendly. And while maybe to some people that doesn't seem, wrong, to me it feels like you're not on my side. To me it feels like you're betraying me with the person who hates me the most. And then there's these YouTube videos. I feel the need to tell my story. I couldn't tell you why. It's just who I am and who I've always been. I feel it's important to share who we are with the world because I do believe that God created us for fellowship so that we could be there as a community for one another. That's the other thing, and a part of this is that I am very community based. I want to be in a community of people that love each other, protect each other, look out for one another, share with one another. And I find that I can't find a community that wants to do that anymore in this day and age. I can't find it in a church. I can't find it in the homeschooling world. I can't even find it in a neighborhood. The neighborhood that we had to move out of last year, not from the terrible landlords, but the house where Jared and I felt we were going to be for the rest of our lives, the house that we loved and felt truly at home in. The reason why we felt that wasn't just the house, it was the neighborhood we were in. We had a very close relationship with everyone around us, and I could go out to let my dog out in the backyard at night and stand on my porch and have a 15-20 minute conversation with my neighbor next door. I could go out front and rake leaves and have the neighbor across the street come and talk with me and, share her love of art with me. And then if I'm doing some gardening, somebody on the corner would come over and start talking to me, and our children got along, and it was community. And that was taken away from me. And that was incredibly devastating for me. Again, I think this was just another piece of this puzzle of when my life began to unravel and the anger and the frustration really started setting in, and I could no longer control this anger and these feelings that I had, because it was at the same time that Mikey was accusing me of kicking him out, which I never did. But when I'm feeling like there has been an injustice done to me and I'm fighting it on my own and nobody's there to hold me up, to defend me, to speak on my behalf, and I feel like I have to do that all the time, then I'm overwhelmed with tons of different emotions. I get overwhelmed then by my surroundings. I don't sleep well. My medication doesn't work. My pain with my neuropathy is intensified. And I do feel the weight of the world on my shoulder. I seriously feel everything. Social media is a highly sensitive person's worst enemy. The like button is really a gauge whether you like me or not. And I think of that Sally Field moment when she won an Emmy and she said, "You like me, you really like me." We need to feel validated. I'm sorry. You see, you don't get that. We need to feel validated, and we need to feel heard, and we need to feel like you care what we have to say. I need to feel like I matter in this world. As a highly sensitive person, I need to feel some worth in this world. I feel lost and empty and completely alone in this world. And that really takes a toll on me emotionally. And that rejection, it's a vicious cycle. It's that rippling effect of, you throw in the stone into the water, and before you know it, it's just rippling out of control for me. And when you don't try to understand me, and instead you just want to make an assumption that I'm a horrible, rotten person, then you're making matters worse for me. And depression starts to set in, and suicidal thoughts begin to set in. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not putting that on anybody. But a couple years ago, a co-teacher that I was working with confronted me and said that, in a nutshell, said that who I am is why nobody wants to be friends with my son, Tavin. It was devastating. Like, I could not even stand to look at her face at that moment. And I kept telling her I really need to end this conversation, but she wouldn't. And that's the other thing. When a highly sensitive person says this conversation needs to end, you should end it. Because they're really trying to tell you this is going to go somewhere you really don't want it to go. And I'm trying to stop it. As a highly sensitive person, I am trying to stop this before I say something that I'm going to regret and that is going to really make matters worse between me and you. When someone says something hurtful to me, about me, to my face, and it's a lie or an assumption or how you see me or perceive me, and it's not true, I have to process that. And it's going to be processed either bad, or if I have that opportunity to say, I got to stop this conversation because I need to process this, because I do have a tendency to also take responsibility for my own actions. I have a tendency to be able to look back and go, I was wrong. And I will always be the first one to say, you know what, I was wrong and I'm sorry. As a highly sensitive person, I am very aware that I can hurt someone's feelings. So I like to apologize when I need to apologize. And I end up apologizing a lot. And when people don't respond to the apology, then again, it's that vicious cycle that starts all over again. Everything in my world feels unstable and it feels like it's falling apart. So I'm going to end this there because I am going to make a couple shorter videos about some things that I spoke about and how they are our strengths but also our weaknesses. But the problem is you don't get me. And the worst part about not getting me is not trying to get me. Rather than walking away from me and becoming my enemy, you should instead try to get to know me and try to understand where I'm coming from. Because I'm telling you that when I make a friend in you, and if you are welcomed into my heart, which most people are, you will stay there forever, no matter what you do to me. And you need to know that. And you need to understand that. And you also need to know that, yes, I am not the easiest person in the world to live with, to get along with, but I know that. That's what you need to know, is that I know that, and I will always make a way to make that right. So try to understand me, because I'm a highly sensitive person.
Are you a person who just feels wacky and weird all the time and no one gets you? Then you might be a highly sensitive person. Are you living with somebody who just makes you feel crazy all the time because they're jumping from one emotion to the other? You might be living with a highly sensitive person. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to learn more about highly sensitive people like myself. But in understanding a highly sensitive person and the traits of a highly sensitive person will not only make the highly sensitive person's world a much better place, but I promise you, you won't feel so crazy anymore. And you'll have a better understanding about the world around them and the world around you. Just try to bear with us as best as you can, because we know it's not easy for you, and we're sorry for that. Subscribe and share these videos to help others not feel so crazy.